I swear to you, the first note of her song made my blood run cold. I was standing at the stove, the sizzle of onions and garlic filling the air, the sharp sting of their smoke making my eyes water. The kitchen felt safe, normal, until it didn't. Because out of nowhere I heard it, a sound I hadn't heard in years, singing, my mother's voice. I froze, the knife slipping in my damp fingers, clattering against the cutting board. My pulse slammed in my ears. She couldn't sing. She couldn't even speak. Not since the stroke. Mom? My voice cracked, thin, like a child again. Was that you? She sat in her usual chair by the window, blanket wrapped tight around her frail body. Her lips trembled, opening and closing like a broken hinge. And then it came again, soft, cracked, but unmistakable. A lullaby. The same one she used to hum when I was little, rocking me to sleep. I wanted to move closer, but my legs locked. My chest felt tight, like the air had thickened with something invisible. Her eyes were fixed on me, unblinking. Not warm, not tender, haunted. Mom, I whispered. How are you doing this? Her head tilted ever so slightly. A small smile flickered, then vanished, replaced by a strange stiffness. Her fingers, gnarled and trembling, gripped the armrests of her chair like she was holding on for dear life. The kitchen smelled suddenly wrong, burnt garlic, sharp and bitter. I turned off the stove without looking, too afraid to take my eyes off her. Talk to me, I begged. Please, say something else. Her lips parted, trembling, her chest rising unevenly. Her eyes darted past me, to the doorway, then back. And then she whispered, a single name. Robert. The sound barely scraped out of her throat, more breath than voice, but it was there. My scalp prickled. The name meant nothing to me, but the way she said it, like it was carved into her bones, made my stomach twist. Robert? I repeated, my voice cracking. Who's Robert? Her hands twitched, knuckles white, as if she wanted to reach out but couldn't. She shook her head, slow, deliberate, tears filling her eyes. Mom, is he someone you know? No response, just a shallow gasp, her lips forming the shape of the name again, silent this time. I moved closer, kneeling at her feet. My hands hovered over hers, but her body language screamed tension, every muscle taut. She didn't want comfort. She wanted me to listen. Her eyes darted to the photo shelf, then back to me. A signal. You want me to look? At the pictures? I asked. Her jaw clenched. The faintest nod. I scrambled up, scanning the frames. My father. My grandparents. Old black and whites. Nothing unusual. But my gut told me I was missing something. Behind me, my mother's humming started again. Low. Uneven. Dissonant. Not the lullaby anymore. Just a tuneless hum that made my skin crawl. Mom, please stop. I whispered, but she didn't. The sound filled the kitchen, wrapping around me until my heart was pounding so loud I could hardly think. I turned back toward her. Her face was wet with tears now, and her lips kept moving, though no sound came out. Just one word over and over, silent but clear. Robert. The name carved itself into me. I didn't know who he was, but I knew one thing. Whoever Robert was, he terrified my mother. And if she was terrified, then so was I. Then, mid-song, she whispered a name I'd never heard before. Robert. Hearing my mute mother whisper a stranger's name nearly broke me. I leaned closer to her, my hands still wet from the onion juice I hadn't rinsed off. Mom, who's Robert? Her lips trembled, the corners twitching as though the name itself burned her mouth. Her eyes darted, first to the ceiling, then toward the darkened hallway. It was the way a hunted animal looks before it bolts. You can't just... I caught myself. She couldn't answer, not like normal people. She hadn't spoken since the stroke. At best, she mouthed words, raspy and broken, like the sound I'd just heard. But the fear in her gaze wasn't confusion. It was recognition. Her throat worked dry and cracking. A croak escaped, but no full word. Just that name again, mouthed this time, Robert. Is he someone from the past? My voice was quiet, though inside I felt a rising panic. She shook her head too fast, the motion jerky, almost violent. Her fingers, thin and pale, clutched at her dress, twisting the fabric as if anchoring herself. The garlic hissed behind me in the skillet, but I didn't move. I kept watching her face, the way her nostrils flared, the subtle tick beneath her left eye. Not random fear. This was targeted. I crouched in front of her. Mom, you can tell me. Who is he? Her lips pressed into a thin line. Then she lifted her hand, not to me, but toward the hallway again. A warning. I turned my head, staring at the shadowed corridor that led to the bedrooms. Silence. Just the low hum of the refrigerator. "Mom," I whispered. "There's no one there." But the way her shoulders curled inward told me she didn't believe it. Later that night, when the dishes had piled high, I forced myself to breathe through the clinking water. The house smelled of soap and lemon, but the earlier tension clung like damp air. I tried convincing myself it had been nothing, just a slip of memory from her fractured mind. But then my hand brushed something stiff at the bottom of the stack of dish rags. I pulled it out. A photograph. It was old, its corners yellowed and curling. My stomach twisted as soon as I saw it. My mother. Not older, not fragile. Younger. Hair thick and dark, her face tight with an expression that wasn't quite a smile. Standing beside her was a man. Tall, broad, his hand gripping her wrist hard enough that I swore I could feel the pressure through the photo. My mother's eyes in that picture mirrored the same terror she'd shown earlier that night. The back of the photo was marked in neat blue ink, "Me and Robert, 1984. I didn't sleep well. Every creak in the floorboards made my chest seize. I couldn't stop staring at that photo, trying to place the man. Had I ever seen him? A family friend? Someone she knew before I was born? The questions circled until exhaustion finally pulled me under. When sunlight hit my face the next morning, I blinked awake with dry eyes. I reached for the glass of water on my nightstand. That's when I froze. The photo. It was sitting there on the wood, perfectly centered. I had hidden it in the back of the kitchen drawer the night before. I had locked my bedroom door before sleeping. My throat went dry. The blue ink on the back seemed darker now, bolder, like it was daring me to read it again. By morning, that same photo lay on my nightstand, even though I had locked my bedroom door. The photo looked innocent until I saw the way his hand dug into her skin. I turned it over in my hands again, trying to steady my breathing. The paper was soft with age, edges curled inward, and it carried that unmistakable smell, mildew and attic dust, the scent of something that should have stayed buried. But my eyes kept going back to his hand. The man, Robert. His fingers weren't resting on my mother's wrist, they were clamped, hard, the skin of her arm dented beneath them. She wasn't smiling. Her mouth was tight, corners pulled back like someone forcing themselves through pain. "Mom," I whispered, carrying the photo into the living room. "You need to see this." She sat hunched in her armchair, blanket around her shoulders though the house wasn't cold. Her eyes flicked up, wary, the way they always did when she knew I was holding something that mattered. I crouched beside her and placed the photo in her lap. For a second she just stared, and then her body crumpled. Her chest heaved as though the weight of the picture pressed down on her lungs. Tears welled up and slid silently down her cheeks, but her silence didn't last. Her fist rose, trembling, and slammed onto the table beside her chair. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound cracked through the quiet house. "Mom, stop! What are you doing?" I grabbed her wrist gently, but she pulled away, her eyes wild, pupils wide. 3 strikes. Not random. A signal. A warning. I leaned in, whispering as though someone might overhear us. "What are you telling me? That I need to stay away? Stay away from him?" Her lips formed a word. Not a whisper this time, just the shape of it. "Go." The muscles in my stomach nodded. My mother never begged, never pleaded. But here she was, shaking, her hands still trembling over that picture. I couldn't shake it off that night. The photo burned in my head. Every time I closed my eyes I saw his grip, saw her eyes begging me not to dig deeper. But then the house made sure I didn't sleep. Around midnight a floorboard creaked in the hallway. Not the usual settling, the deliberate, weight-shifting kind. My skin prickled. I sat up in bed, heart hammering. "Mom?" I whispered into the dark. No answer. Then, whispers. Too faint to make out, but threading through the silence. I pressed my ear to the wall. The voice was low, steady. Male. I scrambled for the baseball bat I kept by my dresser. My palms slicked with sweat as I opened my door. The hallway stretched long, the air heavier than it should have been. Nothing. No one. Just the tick of the clock in the kitchen. But when I passed my mother's room, I froze. Her door was half open. She was awake, sitting upright in bed, eyes wide and fixed on the dark corner of her ceiling. Her lips moved silently. I stepped inside. "Mom, did you hear it too?" Her hand jerked toward her nightstand. On it the photo. She had taken it to bed with her, clutching it like a talisman. "Mom, please," I begged, crouching low. "Tell me who he is. Tell me what he wants." Her lips moved again. This time I caught it. "Robert." Her fingers dug into mine, nails sharp, desperate. She didn't need to say more. The fear in her grip told me everything. By morning I knew I couldn't stop. Whatever she thought she was protecting me from, it was already here. I searched the attic, dust scratching my throat, cobwebs clinging to my hair. Boxes upon boxes of forgotten things, clothes, magazines, brittle Christmas decorations. And then, shoved into the far corner under a tarp, I found it. A box marked only with a smudge of red ink. Inside, papers, letters, photos, newspaper clippings. My hands shook as I shuffled through them, heart racing at every dated page. And then I saw it. A police report. The name leapt out in black ink, underlined twice. Robert. Digging deeper, I uncovered a box in the attic filled with documents, and a police report naming Robert. It felt like the house itself was whispering his name. The attic was suffocating. Dust clawed at my throat, and the air was so dry it felt brittle. I knelt by the open box, documents spilling across the floor like secrets bleeding into the light. My hands shook as I picked through them. A police report. 1985. Name, Robert M. Haynes. Charge, assault. Outcome, dismissed due to lack of evidence. Assault, I whispered into the silence, the word breaking in my throat. You knew, Mom. You knew and you hid it. The paper trembled between my fingers. My skin prickled with the realization that these weren't just forgotten scraps, they were warnings. Warnings I was never meant to find. Behind me, the wooden beams groaned. For a moment I thought I heard a low voice threading through the rafters. My pulse spiked. No, I muttered. It's just the wind. But it didn't feel like the wind. It felt like the house was whispering Robert. I carried the files downstairs, each step creaking under my weight. My mother was at the table, her blanket wrapped tight around her shoulders, eyes hollow. She didn't look at me when I placed the report in front of her. You kept this from me, I said. My voice cracked. Her gaze flicked to the paper, then to me. Her lips pressed together so tightly they turned white. You knew he was dangerous. My breath came faster. Mom, why? Why didn't you ever tell me? Her hand lifted, shaking. She traced the air with her finger, 1, 2, 3, before pressing her palm flat against her chest. You! My voice dropped. He hurt you. Her eyes filled, glassy, but she didn't deny it. She just lowered her head, shoulders caving inward like the weight of decades had finally collapsed on her. I swallowed hard, throat dry. Is he dead? Is that it? Or is he still out there? Her hand snapped upward suddenly, palm out. Stop. The fear in her eyes was sharper now, a clear answer. Still out there. Hours later, after I tucked her into bed, I sat back at the kitchen table surrounded by scattered papers. I forced myself to read every document. Birth certificates, bills, hospital notes. My mother's life laid out in fragile sheets of paper. And then my eyes landed on it. A certificate, my certificate. Name, Ethan Carter. Mother, Elaine Carter. My breath caught. The ink was faded, but clear. Robert M. Haynes. My stomach lurched. The walls seemed to tilt. No. No, no, no. The word pulsed in my head. Father. Him. The man whose grip bruised her in the photo. The man in the police report. The man she was still terrified of. I shoved the papers away, but the truth burned through me anyway. My father was Robert. I stumbled to my mother's room. She was awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling again, lips moving in her silent prayers. Why didn't you tell me? My voice was sharp, desperate. Why hide it all these years? Why hide him? Her face crumpled, tears spilling silently. She reached for my hand, clutching it with surprising strength. Her lips moved, forming the words carefully. Protect you. I pulled away. Protect me from what? From him knowing I exist? From me knowing who I am? You should have told me, Mom! She shook her head violently, banging her fist once against the mattress. Not in anger, in warning. Is he coming? I asked, my voice barely audible. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The tremor in her body, the dart of her eyes toward the window said enough. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, every muscle taut. The photo, the reports, the certificate, they all sat locked in my nightstand, but I felt them humming, alive, as though the papers themselves wanted me to understand something darker. The house was too still. Even the hum of the fridge felt wrong. Then creak. I sat up, breath caught in my throat. Creak. A weight shifting on the floorboards just beyond my door. And then the unmistakable sound. Heavy footsteps, pacing, back and forth, right outside my bedroom door. That night, I heard heavy footsteps pacing outside my bedroom door. Everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. The papers lay scattered across my bed like broken glass. My hands hovered above them, shaking so hard I thought they'd rip. His name under. Father. Robert. I whispered at once, just to test if the world would collapse. It almost did. I wanted to vomit. My chest felt split open, like someone had taken a knife and carved away every story I'd been told about my life. My father hadn't died. He hadn't disappeared in some vague, honorable way. No, Robert was my father, and Robert wasn't gone. I stormed into my mother's room, birth certificate crushed in my hand. You lied. My voice was so sharp it made her flinch. All my life, you told me he died before I could even walk. But he didn't. He's alive, isn't he? Her lips parted, but only a broken wheeze came out. She clawed at her throat like the words were stuck there, like she could dig them out if she pressed hard enough. Say it, I shouted. Her eyes widened, glassy with tears. She shook her head, slow at first, then faster, as though she could shake away the truth. Her mouth twisted into a sob, but no sound followed, just a raw croak. I dropped the paper on her chest. His name. Robert. He's my father. Tell me it's not true. She gripped the certificate with trembling fingers. Her whole body convulsed with a sob. And then she mouthed it. Yes. The floor gave out under me. I stumbled back, hitting the dresser. My body shook, my breath jagged. You carried this secret for decades? My voice was bitter, foreign to my own ears. You let me grow up thinking I was someone else's child? Why? Why would you do that to me? She pressed both hands together, shaking them like she was begging for something. Protect you. Her lips formed the words I already knew. But I wasn't convinced. Protect me? Or protect yourself? Her gaze snapped to mine, sharp, almost angry, but behind it, pure terror. I stepped closer, my voice dropping. He's not dead, is he? Her silence was the answer. The room pressed in on me. The air was heavy with the smell of mothballs and her old blanket, cloying and suffocating. I pressed my palms into my face, tears hot against my skin. So all this time, he was out there, breathing, walking, maybe watching us. She jerked upright, eyes darting to the window like a child caught in headlights. Her breathing sped up, shallow and fast. You've seen him, I whispered. She froze. Oh my God, I muttered. He's not just a ghost from your past. He's alive. She covered her mouth with both hands, sobbing soundlessly, rocking back and forth. I backed away, heart slamming. My whole body buzzed with betrayal, but underneath it was something worse. A crawling, suffocating dread that seeped into my skin. Because if Robert was alive, then he knew. He knew about me. That night I couldn't sleep. Every sound became a threat. The click of the fridge, the ticking of the clock, the branches scraping against the siding. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, while my mother's muffled sobs carried faintly down the hall. My mind spun in jagged loops. Who was Robert, really? Why had the assault case been dismissed? Why had my mother stayed silent, protecting me, or maybe protecting him? And most of all, was he already here? Sometime past midnight, the house fell so quiet I could hear my pulse in my ears. That's when it happened. SHHHK. A soft scrape against the front door. I sat up, every muscle tensed, my breath stopped. Then, sliding slowly across the hardwood, an envelope. I crept out of bed, my bare feet cold against the floor. The hall was dark, every shadow too thick, too long. The envelope lay centered on the rug, pale against the wood. My fingers shook as I picked it up. No stamp, no address, just one letter scrawled across the front. R. And then, one night later, a letter slid under our front door, signed only R. The paper smelled like smoke, as if it had been pulled from a fire. My fingers shook as I unfolded the note, the edges rough and brittle against my skin. The ink slashed across the page in jagged strokes, like whoever wrote it had pressed too hard, carving the words in anger. You can't hide her from me forever. Blood will always call blood. I read it once, then again. The words didn't change, but the floor seemed to tilt under me. Mom! I whispered, my throat raw. It's him. Her voice broke before she could even form words. No! I forced the paper into her hands. Read it. Look at it. She didn't. Her fingers curled around the note like it was burning her. Her face went white, her body sagging against the chair. A broken sob shuddered out of her chest. This isn't some old ghost, I said, pacing across the room, my heart hammering so hard it made my vision blur. He's alive. He's here. He's watching us. She shook her head, lips trembling, but her silence screamed louder than any denial. Tell me what he wants, I demanded. My voice cracked, desperation bleeding through. Tell me why he's after us. Her mouth opened, but only a rasp came out. She clutched at the note again, pressing it to her chest, rocking slightly like she was trying to hold herself together. Mom! I snapped, slamming my hand against the table. The sound cracked through the room. She flinched, her eyes snapping up to mine, wet, terrified. He won't stop, she whispered, barely audible. I froze. What do you mean he won't stop? Her breath hitched. Her hands twisted in her lap, knuckles white. He doesn't let go. Never did. Her words hung heavy in the air. My chest felt tight, like the house itself was pressing down on me. Then what does this mean? I waved the note in her face. You can't hide her from me forever. Who's her mom? Me? Is that what this is about? She broke again, clutching her throat, sobbing into her sleeve. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat down hard on the edge of the couch, burying my face in my hands. The smell of smoke clung to my fingers, bitter and suffocating. He had touched this paper. He had been close enough to slip it under our door, close enough to see us. I looked up. He's watching, isn't he? My mother didn't answer. Where, Mom? My voice rose, panic boiling over. Where is he? Her lips quivered. Finally, she whispered, everywhere. The word gutted me. The silence after that wasn't silence at all. I could hear the creak of the pipes, the tick of the old wall clock, the faint rustle of wind through the eaves. Every sound felt magnified, threatening. I pushed myself up and locked the front door, then the back. Checked the windows twice. My mother followed me with her eyes, but didn't move. She looked like she was already sinking into some private hell she couldn't crawl out of. I wanted to believe this was just paranoia, some nightmare conjured up by a broken woman's past. But the note was real. The stink of cigarettes still clung to the paper. And Robert knew where we lived. That night I barely slept. I lay listening to the house breathe, the wood groaning with each shift of wind. Every shadow that moved across my wall set my heart racing. I thought of his handwriting, the violent slant, the way the ink dug into the paper like scars. Blood will always call blood. The words gnawed at me until dawn. The next morning, while I was dragging the trash to the curb, Mrs. Keller from across the street shuffled over in her robe, clutching a mug of coffee. She squinted at me, lowering her voice. Strange thing, she said. Last night, I saw a man standing under the streetlight, just watching your house. My stomach turned to ice. The next morning, a neighbor said they'd seen a man watching our house from across the street. The first time I saw the shadow in our yard, my knees went weak. I froze at the window, my fingers gripping the curtain so tightly the fabric bunched between my knuckles. It wasn't just a trick of light. There was a man standing by the hedge, his outline sharp against the faint glow of the street lamp. I whispered, barely breathing. Mom, someone's outside. Her chair scraped across the kitchen floor as she came closer. She leaned in, her face pale, lips pressed into a tight line. Don't let him see you. My chest tightened. You think it's... She cut me off with a shake of her head, her hands trembling as she tugged the curtain shut. Don't say his name. But the image of the silhouette burned behind my eyelids. Tall, broad shoulders. The way he tilted his head up, like he knew exactly where I was watching from. That night, every sound in the house became unbearable. The tick of the clock, the groan of the pipes. The floorboard outside my room creaked, and I held my breath, convinced someone was standing there. My mind whispered his name over and over, no matter how hard I tried to silence. Robert. By morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. If he was back, I had to know. The public records office smelled like damp paper and dust. I sat at a cracked wooden table, scrolling through digitized files on the ancient computer. My palms were sweaty, my leg bouncing under the desk. Looking for something specific? The clerk asked, her tone sharp. I forced a smile. Old property records. Just research. Her eyes lingered on me, skeptical, before she walked away. I typed his name. Robert Vance. Dozens of entries popped up. Old business filings. Deals that smelled wrong even through the sterile wording. Lawsuits quietly settled. Police mentions without charges. Every line I read pulled me deeper into the pit I thought I'd escaped years ago. And then, my breath hitched. Our house. His name was still there, buried in financial documents, entangled in some obscure joint agreement. My throat went dry. He still had rights. Legal ones. It wasn't just a shadow. It was ownership. Control. I grabbed my phone and dialed Mom. Where are you? She asked, her voice already brittle. The records office. Mom, his name. It's on the house. He never let it go. The silence on the other end stretched too long. Finally, she whispered, "I was afraid of that." My pulse spiked. "You knew?" Her voice cracked. "I thought it was buried. I thought, God help me, I thought if I ignored it, he'd stay gone." Anger surged through me. "Mom, you should have told me. I wanted you safe." She snapped back, then softened. "I didn't want you carrying this weight." But it was too late. The weight was already crushing me. Back at home, I spread the papers across the table. The documents smelled of ink and mildew, the pages rough under my fingers. My hands shook as I flipped through them, scanning every line, desperate for a loophole, for something that would prove he wasn't as close as I feared. But when I reached the last page, the air left my lungs. Stamped in bold black ink, the date glared up at me. Filed only 3 months ago. My vision blurred. Robert wasn't gone. He was back. And for the first time in years I realized I wasn't living in safety. I was living in his house. She clawed at the table like her life depended on it. Her nails screeched against the wood, dragging deep lines until the surface splintered. I flinched at the sound. It was raw, animal, desperate. "Mom, stop!" I grabbed her wrists, but she shook me off, eyes wide, pupils blown like she was staring at a ghost. "He's back," she whispered. Her breath smelled faintly of stale tea and fear. "He's not here by accident. He never does anything by accident." Her hand trembled as she pushed something across the table. A bracelet, thin, silver, dulled with age. I'd seen it on her wrist every day of my life. She never took it off. "Why are you giving me this?" My voice cracked. She leaned close, lips barely moving. "Because you won't believe me unless you see it." I turned the bracelet in my hand. The metal felt warm, almost alive from her skin. My thumb found a tiny hinge, nearly invisible. I pried it open. Inside, folded so small it looked like dust, was a slip of yellowed paper. I unfolded it, heart hammering. 4 words in jagged, fading ink. "Don't trust your Uncle Robert." I stared at it until the letters blurred. "What the hell does this mean?" My voice was too loud, too sharp. "Shh!" She pressed her fingers to her lips, darting a frantic glance at the window as though someone was listening. Her hands shook so hard I thought she'd break. "Keep your voice down. You don't understand. He's not just coming for us, he's coming for what's his." The air seemed to thicken. "Uncle?" My throat tightened around the word. "You told me he was my father." Her face crumpled. She clutched my hand across the table, her grip cold and damp. "He's both." I ripped my hand back. "That's not possible. It's worse than you think." Her nails tapped the wood again, faster now, a frantic Morse code. "You were born into his claim. He'll never let you go." I felt my stomach twist. "You knew all this time?" Her voice dropped to a hoarse whisper. "I tried to bury it. I tried to keep you clean. But he always finds ways back. And now he's here, watching." Her eyes darted toward the window again. I followed her gaze. The curtain hung still, but I could almost feel the shape of a man standing just beyond it, waiting. "Mom," I said slowly, forcing air into my lungs. "How long have you been hiding things from me?" Her lips trembled. "Since the day you were born." I slammed my fist into the table. The splintered grooves rattled. "And you thought lying would protect me? You thought this." I held up the bracelet, shaking. "Would be enough?" Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't look away. "It kept you alive." The silence stretched between us, so heavy it made my ears ring. Then, almost mechanically, she reached under the table and pulled out a tin box. She set it down with a dull thud. "Look," she said. Inside were scraps, photos with faces torn out, notes written in the same jagged scrawl, receipts from years past. Each one was a breadcrumb trail of warnings, hidden in plain sight. Every scrap whispered the same truth. Robert was always circling, always watching. My hands shook as I gathered them up, my chest tight. "You mean to tell me," I said slowly, "that the man I thought was my father is also my uncle? And you let me live my whole life not knowing?" Her silence was the only answer I needed. The room spun, my vision narrowing as the truth slammed into me. Robert wasn't just my father. He was also my uncle. The truth hit me like poison. I was born of betrayal. My stomach twisted so violently I thought I'd be sick right there at the table. The bracelet, the paper, the silence in my mother's eyes, it all snapped into place like jagged glass shards. Robert wasn't just my father. He was her brother-in-law. My voice broke before I could control it. "Tell me it isn't true." Her lips quivered, but she didn't speak. Her silence was louder than any scream. "Mom!" I slammed my fist against the table, splinters biting into my skin. Say something. Deny it. Please. Her shoulders caved in, her body shrinking as though she wanted to disappear into the chair. I was trapped, she whispered. He wouldn't let me go. I thought, God forgive me, I thought I was protecting you. The air in the kitchen grew heavy, suffocating. My ears buzzed. Protecting me? My laugh came out sharp, broken. From what? From the truth? From knowing I'm the product of his control? She pressed her hands to her face, shaking. I tried to raise you strong. I tried to keep him away. You were all I had. Her words only twisted the knife deeper. You should have told me. My voice cracked under the weight of rage and grief. All these years, you let me believe in something normal. A father. A lie. The refrigerator hummed in the silence, mocking me. My chest burned. I pushed back from the table and paced, the floor creaking under my steps. My hands couldn't stay still. They clawed at my hair, tugged at the air. She looked up at me then, her eyes red, her fingers gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles whitened. You don't understand the danger you're in. If he knows you've uncovered this. I cut her off, my words sharp as glass. If? He's been circling us like a vulture, Mom. He knows everything. He's always known. Her mouth opened like she wanted to argue, but no words came. Just fear. Inside, my rage shifted into something colder, something sharper. Fine. If she wouldn't give me the truth, I'd dig it out myself. I grabbed my laptop from the counter, my hands still trembling as I set it down on the table. The plastic was warm under my palms, but my blood felt like ice. I'll find him, I muttered. I'll find out everything. Mom's voice cracked. Don't. Please. The more you know, the less safe you'll be. I shot her a look, my jaw tight. Knowledge is the only weapon I've got left. You had your chance to protect me. Now it's my turn. I flipped the laptop open. The screen glowed, casting harsh blue light across my face. My reflection stared back at me in the dark glass for a moment, hollow-eyed and furious. The keys clicked under my fingers as I typed his name, Robert Vance. The search bar filled in like it already knew. But before I could hit enter, the screen flickered. A new email notification popped up in the corner. From unknown sender. Subject none. I hesitated, my pulse thudding in my ears. I clicked. Inside was a single line. You're mine too. The words glared back at me, and for the first time, I realized Robert wasn't hiding in the shadows anymore. He was already inside my world. Seeing myself on his hidden camera made my blood boil. I froze at the sight of the video thumbnail. My hands trembled so violently that the cursor slipped, clicking it open before I could even think. The grainy footage flickered to life. There I was, standing at the stove 2 nights ago, stirring a pot of pasta. The angle was low, tilted, like it had been filmed from beneath the counter. My hair swayed as I leaned to taste the sauce, completely unaware I was being watched. My throat dried up. He was inside my home. I slammed the laptop shut. My pulse thundered in my ears, drowning out everything. My legs shook as I paced the kitchen, running my hand over the cold marble counter, scanning every corner for a hidden lens. The overhead light hummed, flickering once, and that simple sound cut straight through my skull like a drill. Calm down, I muttered, gripping the edge of the sink so hard my knuckles bleached white. He wants this. He wants you panicking. But how could I not? He had been here. My sanctuary, my children's safe space, violated. The phone buzzed against the counter. A new email notification. Unknown sender, no subject. I didn't want to look. My skin crawled, like ants were burrowing under it. But I clicked anyway. Just 4 words. You're mine too. No name. No greeting. Just ownership. Mom? My daughter's small voice drifted in from the hall. I nearly jumped out of my skin. I pasted on a smile as she padded into the room, clutching her blanket. Her eyes flicked to the laptop. Why are you shaking? I'm fine, sweetheart, I said quickly. My voice cracked halfway through. She tilted her head. You're lying. You only sound like that when you're scared. I crouched, forcing my hands still on her shoulders. Listen to me. If you ever hear someone in the house who shouldn't be here, you run. Don't hide. Don't wait. Run to the neighbors and scream. Her eyes widened, lips trembling. Is there someone here now? I swallowed hard. No. Not right now. But we're being careful, okay? Extra careful. She nodded, but her body stiffened, her little fists clenching around the blanket. I hugged her, inhaling the faint lavender scent of her shampoo. My heart cracked. I had to end this. I couldn't let him win. As soon as she was asleep again, I sat back at the table. My reflection in the dark laptop screen looked nothing like me. Wild eyes, clenched jaw, lips pulled tight in something between rage and grief. Robert wanted me cowering. He wanted me fragile, cornered, waiting for his next move. But he had underestimated something. If he truly believed I was his blood, then he had handed me a weapon. I knew how he thought, because I had inherited it. He thinks he's the hunter. Fine, let him. I'd make myself the bait. The house creaked under the weight of the autumn wind. Shadows stretched long against the walls, fractured by the glow of the laptop screen. Somewhere outside, a dog barked twice before silence swallowed the night again. Every sound felt amplified, deliberate, like the world itself was holding its breath. I opened the laptop. The cursor blinked in the reply box, taunting me. My hands hovered over the keys, sweat slicking my palms. For a moment, my chest heaved with panic. My skin burned as if invisible eyes were pressed against the glass, watching me type. And then, suddenly, I smiled. "You want me, Robert?" I whispered to the empty kitchen. "Then come take me." I typed it. 4 words. The same number as his. "Then come and claim me." And I hit send. The whoosh of the email leaving my outbox echoed louder than thunder in my ears. I slammed the laptop shut, hard hammering, knowing I had just lit the fuse, and there was no going back. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one building inside me. Rain hammered the roof like fists, each drop echoing my heartbeat. The wind rattled the windows, whistling through the cracks as if the whole house knew what was about to happen. I stood in the hallway, barely breathing. My hand rested on the doorknob, slick with sweat. Just a twist, and the plan was in motion. I left it ajar. Just enough. A whisper of an invitation. The living room was dark except for the faint amber glow from the lamp I'd left flickering on the far table. Shadows pulled in the corners, heavy and waiting. My phone was propped behind the books on the shelf, its red light hidden under a strip of tape. Recording. Always recording. I checked on my mother. She was in her room, door closed, silent. She hadn't asked questions when I told her to stay put. Maybe she already knew too much. I whispered to myself. He thinks I'm the prey. Let's show him different. The smell of wet earth drifted through the cracked window, sharp and metallic like blood in the air. The weight of the night pressed down on me, suffocating. And then, creak, boots on wood. The sound slithered under my skin, curling my stomach tight. My breath hitched as the storm outside seemed to hush for a single, terrifying heartbeat. He was inside. I pressed my lips close to the dark, whispering, as if the house itself needed convincing. "You wanted me here, Robert. Well, I'm here." No answer. Just another step. The boots were deliberate, heavy, pausing as if he wanted me to know exactly where he was. From the kitchen came the faint scrape of something, a chair leg dragged an inch. My chest thudded, every pulse vibrating in my ribs. I pressed myself against the wall, eyes glued to the slice of hallway visible through the doorway. The shadows shifted with each flash of lightning. The lamp flickered once, humming faintly. Dust floated in the sliver of light like falling ash. And then I saw him. First, just a silhouette, broad shoulders, head tilted slightly, as if listening. The door eased wider with his touch, squealing on its hinges. My nails dug into my palms. A voice cut through the silence, low, almost amused. "You've grown bold." The sound of it clawed at me, smooth on the surface, but fraying at the edges, like he was forcing control he didn't quite have. "Did you think I wouldn't come?" he added, his steps edging closer. I swallowed. My throat burned with the words I wanted to scream, but I kept still. The phone recorded. Every word. Every step. My mind raced. This was it. The line between terror and power. I could either stay frozen or lean into the trap I'd built. His breathing was closer now, slow and measured, but there was a hitch. A falter. A tiny tell. He wasn't as calm as he pretended, and I clung to that. "He's nervous too." Another flash of lightning illuminated the room, and I caught it. His face, scarred at the jawline. Eyes too sharp, darting. A smile that twitched, straining to look natural but pulling too tight at the corners. A mask. All of it. The storm rattled the windows again, thunder cracking like the world splitting open. My breath clouded the air, shallow, uneven. And then, for the first time, I locked eyes with the man who had haunted every shadow in my life. And through the shifting dark, I saw his face for the first time. Hearing him call me, "son," felt like acid burning my skin. His voice was gravelly, cracked at the edges, but steady in its cruelty. I froze. My throat tightened, and my stomach churned so violently I thought I'd be sick. He stood in the doorway like a shadow that had finally crawled out of the past to choke me. Robert, the man who should have been a father, now just a vulture wearing human skin. His hair had gone gray, wild tufts sticking out like broken wires. Deep creases cut through his face, but those eyes, those were mine. Same color, same sharpness, only twisted with something rotten. Looking into them was like staring at a future I refused to claim. Son, he repeated, a smirk twisting his lips. I wanted to spit in his face. Instead, I hit record on my phone, slipping it down by my thigh. My thumb trembled as it brushed the screen. Every second mattered. Every word he spat had to be captured. You don't get to call me that, I said, keeping my voice low, cold. He chuckled, a deep, mocking sound. He stepped closer, dragging his boots across the wooden floor. Each scrape echoed like a threat. Oh, but you are my blood, my name, my legacy. No matter how far you run, you're mine. My fists curled so tight my nails cut into my palms. You think I want to be anything like you? I shot back. His jaw ticked. A small twitch near his eye betrayed the calm he was trying to perform. He tilted his head, smiling, but the smile was brittle. Careful how you speak. I've taken back what's mine before. I'll do it again. He was pacing now, slow circles, like a predator sizing me up. His fingers tapped against his thigh in an uneven rhythm. That nervous tick gave him away. He wasn't in control, not fully. You don't scare me, I said, though my heart was thundering so violently I thought he might hear it. He leaned in, so close I could smell the sour stench of whiskey seeping from his pores. His breath was hot on my cheek when he whispered, You should be scared. I built this family. Everything you love, it's mine to break. The words sliced deeper than I expected. For a moment I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My mother's face flashed in my mind, her tired eyes, the way her hands trembled whenever his name came up. I straightened, forcing steel into my voice. Not anymore. You lost that right the day you walked out. His grin widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. They glittered with rage. He jabbed a finger at my chest, hard. You think you can erase me? Pretend I'm nothing? I'll remind you, boy. I'll remind all of you what happens when you forget who's in charge. My phone vibrated in my hand as the recording saved another minute. Evidence. That was all I needed. Let him rant, let him threaten. I wanted the world to hear the poison dripping out of him. Take back what's yours, I said, stepping back just enough to put space between us. You mean destroy everything because you can't stand that we survived without you? His face darkened. His breathing grew sharp, almost animalistic. He slammed his fist against the wall so hard a picture frame rattled to the floor, glass shattering at our feet. You're nothing without me, he roared. Spit flew from his lips, his face blotched red. This house, your mother, even you, you're mine. I flinched, not from fear but from the sheer force of his voice. My phone caught it all. And then, his head turned, slowly, toward the hallway. His nostrils flared as he muttered her name, a low, guttural snarl. Margaret! My stomach dropped. He was moving toward my mother's room. And then he turned toward my mother's room, snarling her name. Her scream was the sound of decades of silence breaking open. It wasn't a scream shaped by words. It was primal, raw, and jagged. My mother's voice tore through the house like glass shattering. I'd never heard her sound like that. Never heard her rage and terror rip free at once. I spun. Robert was already charging, his shoulders low, his teeth bared like an animal. Get away from her! I roared, shoving myself between them. My chest collided with his, bone against bone. My pulse hammered so hard I could barely hear over it. The table tipped, crashing sideways, plates and silverware clattering across the floor. A glass exploded into shards at our feet. My phone skidded but kept recording, the little red light blinking like a witness who would never forget. Robert's face twisted into something feral. His lip curled, spit flying as he snarled. She's mine! She's always been mine! Don't you dare! I spat back. My hands shook, but I planted myself in front of my mother, her sobs breaking behind me. He lunged again. I shoved with everything I had. His back slammed into the wall with a dull thud. For a second he froze, then let out a bitter laugh. You think you're stronger than me? His voice cracked like dry wood. I made this family. I bled for it. And you... He jabbed a finger at me, his eyes wild. You're nothing but a mistake that lived. My throat burned. I wanted to break, to crumble under those words, but instead I held my ground. If I'm a mistake, then you're the man who made it, and I'll make sure the world knows it. His nostrils flared. He started pacing in short, jagged strides, hands clawing at the air as if trying to grab the room itself. That tick in his cheek kept pulsing, faster now, like his rage had no skin left to hide under. "You think anyone cares?" he shouted, spit hitting the floor. "You think they'll believe you? I built respect in this town. They'll laugh at your pathetic little recordings." I held up my phone, the red light still burning steady. "Not laugh. Listen. Every threat, every word, it's all here." For the first time, his body stuttered. His hand twitched, reaching, then falling. His eyes darted to the phone, then back to me, then to my mother cowering behind me. His mask slipped, panic threaded through the fury. "You wouldn't," he started, but his voice faltered. I stepped forward. "Try me," he roared, a guttural animal sound, and lunged again. His fist clipped my jaw, white-hot pain bursting across my face. My knees almost gave, but adrenaline shoved me upright. I grabbed his shirt collar and shoved back, driving him into the corner of the room. "Stop it!" my mother cried, her voice ragged, but neither of us heard. Robert's face was red, veins straining at his neck. His spit hit my cheek as he screamed, "I'll burn this whole house down before I let you win! I'll take her! I'll take everything back!" And then, he said it, words he'd never meant to say aloud. "I should have finished it years ago. Should have made sure neither of you lived to shame me." The room went silent except for our breathing. My hand was still clutching his shirt. The phone was still recording, lying just feet away. Every word preserved. Every confession sealed. Sirens wailed in the distance, faint at first, then swelling. Red and blue lights flickered through the curtains. Robert's head snapped toward the window, then back at me. His expression twisted, part rage, part fear. He leaned close, voice low and venomous. "This isn't over." As the sirens wailed outside, Robert's final words were, "This isn't over." Watching him dragged away should have felt like victory, but it only felt heavy. The flashing red and blue lights painted the walls, each burst of color making the broken glass on the floor glitter like tiny knives. My jaw still throbbed from where his fist had caught me, but the ache was nothing compared to the sight in front of me. 2 officers had Robert pinned, his arms twisted behind his back, his face pressed into the floorboards. His roars weren't words anymore, just raw, incoherent rage. "Get off me! You don't know who I am! She's lying! They're all lying!" His voice cracked, spittle spraying as he thrashed. The officers didn't flinch. One yanked him upright, the other snapped cuffs around his wrists. The metal clink echoed through the house like a final lock sliding shut. I should have felt triumph. Instead, my chest tightened with something darker. His eyes met mine as they dragged him toward the door. Bloodshot, veins bulging, teeth bared. Even shackled, he looked dangerous. "You think this ends me?" he spat, voice hoarse. "You think a video changes anything? I'll bury you both. I'll bury you!" I wanted to spit back, to scream that he was finished, but the words died in my throat. Because even then, even in cuffs, there was a part of me that believed he might find a way back in. Behind me, my mother sobbed, her body trembling against mine. I wrapped an arm around her, shielding her from his final glares. She buried her face in my chest, and for the first time in years, I felt her break. Not quietly, not behind closed doors, but out loud. "Mom!" I whispered, my own voice shaking. "It's over. He's gone." She shook her head, tears wetting my shirt. "It's never over with him. Never." The officers shoved Robert out the door. His screams echoed into the night until the slam of the cruiser door cut them short. Then silence, except for my mother's sobs and the faint ticking of the broken clock on the wall. The next day, the video spread like wildfire. I sent it to the police, to family, to anyone who had ever doubted. His voice filled every screen, his threats, his confessions, his venom. There was no denying it now. Calls poured in, my aunt whispering through the line. "I had no idea." A cousin, stunned. "He always acted like the perfect man." The mask was shattered. Robert wasn't a respected figure anymore. He was exposed, every cruel word pinned to him like a scarlet letter. Charges came swiftly. Assault. Domestic abuse. Years of silence finally speaking all at once. The authorities had proof, and I had made sure it was undeniable, but victory tasted like ash. I walked through the house that night, my phone buzzing with messages of support, but none of it mattered. The house felt wrong. The air was heavy, stale, like smoke lingering after a fire. My chest ached with each breath. I stepped into the kitchen, staring at the shattered table, the overturned chairs. My mother was sitting quietly on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at nothing. "Do you feel better?" I asked softly, kneeling beside her. Her eyes flicked toward me, glassy. "I feel empty." I swallowed hard, pressing her hand. "We're free now." Her lips trembled, and for the first time, she gave a small nod. Relief, fragile, but real. We sat together in silence, listening to the quiet. No footsteps pacing, no sudden shouts, no doors slammed in anger. Just silence. And yet, in that silence, I realized something chilling. Justice doesn't erase scars. It only makes space for them to be seen. Weeks passed. Life began to stitch itself back together in crooked lines. My jaw healed. My mother laughed once or twice, though it still sounded foreign, fragile. The whispers in town quieted, though I could feel the eyes still on us. Then one afternoon, I found it in the mailbox. An envelope. No return address. But the handwriting was unmistakable. Sharp, jagged strokes I knew too well. My stomach dropped. My fingers trembled as I held it. Weeks later, I received one last envelope in the mail, the handwriting unmistakable. The envelope trembled in my hands before I even opened it. I stared at the return address. No name, just a scrawl that looked rushed, almost frantic. My pulse hammered in my throat. My fingertips were damp with sweat, smudging the paper. For a long moment, I couldn't move. It felt like the letter itself was breathing, waiting for me to tear it open. "Open it," my mother whispered. Her voice was steady, but her hands, folded tightly in her lap, betrayed a tremor. I swallowed hard. "What if it is?" She cut me off. Her eyes glistened with a mix of fear and inevitability. "But you need to see it." The sound of the paper ripping filled the kitchen like a scream. The smell of ink and cheap paper hit me instantly, sharp, metallic. My fingers shook as I unfolded the single sheet. His handwriting was jagged, uneven, but unmistakable. "Robert, you carry me in your blood." I stopped reading aloud. My chest tightened. The words crawled across the page, sinking their claws into me. My mother's face paled. "Don't," but I continued, almost against my will. "You can't escape me. I'll always be there when you look in the mirror." The kitchen seemed to shrink around me. The ticking of the wall clock grew louder, matching the racing of my heart. "Give it here," my mother said, reaching forward, but I pulled the paper closer to my chest like a shield. "No," I snapped, my voice breaking. "I need to read it." Her lips pressed into a thin line. She looked smaller in that moment, folded in on herself, but her eyes still burned with defiance. "Then read it out loud. Don't carry his poison alone." So I did. "You thought you won. You thought dragging me out in front of the world made you free. But I am inside you. In your thoughts. In your silence. In the way your hand trembles like mine when you're angry. You'll never outrun me." My throat closed. Each word felt like glass shards scraping against my skin. "He's wrong," my mother said firmly, clutching my hand now. Her grip was iron. "He's trying to break you. Don't let him." I looked at her, but the words blurred together, burned into me. I wanted to scream, to tear the letter into 1,000 pieces and set them on fire. But I couldn't, because deep down, the part that scared me most wasn't what Robert had written. It was that I recognized myself in the cadence of his words, in the rhythm of his rage. What if he was right? What if I carried him, not just in my blood, but in my reflection, my choices, my anger? The kitchen light flickered once, the bulb buzzing like it too was straining under the weight of his presence. I whispered, almost to myself, "What if I'm him?" My mother's nails dug into my hand. Her voice shook, but it was fierce. "No. You are not him. You never were. You stood up to him. You fought back. That is not him. That is you." Her words were a lifeline, but I couldn't grab hold. My eyes drifted to the window, where the glass reflected me. And there it was. For the briefest second, I didn't see myself. I saw him, Robert, his eyes staring back, mocking me from the other side of the glass. I stumbled back, knocking over a chair. The crash split the silence. The letter slipped from my hands, landing on the floor with a soft hiss of paper against tile. The ink seemed darker now, bleeding into the fibers, alive. My breathing came in sharp bursts. The air in the kitchen was cold, though no window was open. I bent down slowly, my hand hovering above the paper, but I couldn't bring myself to touch it again. My mother knelt beside me, lifting it carefully, her hand steadier now than mine. She folded it once, then twice, her eyes never leaving mine. "He doesn't get the last word. Not anymore." She tucked it back into the torn envelope and pushed it deep into a drawer. But even with it hidden, I felt it pulsing, like a heartbeat under the wood. That night, As the house settled into silence, I sat awake, staring at the darkened window. My reflection was faint, but I couldn't look away. And sometimes, when the house grows silent at night, I swear I still hear my mother singing his name,